Hello and welcome to Why Wait Till Sunday. It is Thursday and we have bowl games on tap this weekend. It's only a 3-game slate, but we're going to still roll some lineups out. We have the Lending Tree Bowl, that's Western Kentucky and Georgia State. We have the First Responder Bowl, thank you to those folks, Louisiana Lafayette and UTSA, that's Texas San Antonio. And the Cure Bowl, which is Liberty and upstart Coastal Carolina, although, I guess both those teams are kind of upstart. Liberty was ranked for a while this season and has a very interesting guy we will talk about lining up at quarterback. So as we always do, we are going to go over the team totals and look at what teams are projected to score the most points, which is what, of course, we care about for fantasy. Louisiana Lafayette, scheduled to score 36 points in a game. They are favored by 14. Coastal Carolina, 33. Georgia State, 29. Now, that might be a little bit kind of overlooked. Georgia State with the third most points on the slate. Liberty, 27. Western Kentucky, 24. And UTSA bringing up the rear with only 22 projected points. I think we have two teams clearly worth targeting. That's Louisiana and Coastal Carolina. But, we're going to have to look at all these teams because the slate is short. So, we want to find value anywhere we can. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. There's only 6 teams playing, so we will talk about all 6 quarterbacks. Malik Willis is 9,200. This guy is a total stud this year for Liberty, transfer from Auburn. He is the guy who does it all. He's their leading rusher. He is their, quarterback, and he's throwing the ball. He's had at least one 5-touchdown game in this season, and he's a great play at 9,200. Of course, you have to consider a guy like that, but the Coastal Carolina defense is pretty good. They come in as one of the better defenses on the slate. They don't allow a ton of plays to be run. Well, in fact, the second most plays have been run on this defense, only 63 on the year per game. And, that's really not somewhere we want to attack. And the concern is simply that, you're paying the absolute premium in what's probably not going to be a ceiling type game. And Coastal Carolina also allowing the fewest points on the slate at only 19. And I would say they've played some good teams, including BYU. I think Liberty is going to have a tough time against this defense that has seen offenses better than the Liberty offense, even though I like Malik Willis. We have Grayson McCall. He is 8,800, second most expensive quarterback. I think you're kind of getting a similar type of player as Willis in terms of a quarterback who can run the ball, who's the engine of the offense. Everything kind of goes through him at a little discount of only $400. And the Liberty defense is good. They are allowing the fewest points on the slate, but you're not paying the premium. And even though the defense is good, I just think in general, Coastal Carolina is a better team. They're favored by 7. And I think Liberty's great defense is probably skewed by their really weak schedule. And I actually think Coastal Carolina has played a much tougher schedule. So their defensive statistics to me are a little bit more impressive. I like Grayson McCall at 8,800. I think, the decisions this week are going to be, do you play Malik Willis? Do you play Grayson McCall? And then do you play the top 2 running backs on the slate, who we'll get to? But those 4 players are going to decide, I think, the outcome of this slate. So the question is, where do you go between those 4? You probably need to roster 2 of the 4. You could try to squeeze in 3. Although that's going to be difficult. I don't really think you could make a lineup with all 4. I think I like Grayson McCall with a slight discount there on the better team who's favored against a decent defense. Levi Lewis for Louisiana comes in at 7,600, and, his passing contribution just really isn't much. He only got to 300 one time against Texas State. He will chip in on the ground, but he's not gone over 100 in any game. He's not a high volume rusher, under 10 carries per game. So he does get, the occasional long run, but it's not a major part of their offense. They hand it off a lot to their duo of senior running backs who are very good. And so the quarterback doesn't need to do a whole lot. He's had 3 touchdowns in 2 out of their 11 games and hit 300 yards only once. You aren't paying a premium at only $7,600, but if you're gonna dumpster dive for quarterback, I would do a little bit cheaper and get one of these other guys. Frank Harris, kind of the discount Levi Lewis. He's 7,000. He is UTSA's quarterback, and again, a guy that will contribute in the passing game and chip in a little on the ground, but only went over 300 yards one time this year. He has gone over 100 twice on the ground and routinely does get into double-digit carries. But again, I don't love the 7,000. The guy I really want to target is Cornelius Brown at 6,900 from Georgia State. The price to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Granted, they, haven't played the toughest schedule, but they did go up against Louisiana, who's a pretty good defense, and Brown had 196 through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 15 for 64 rushing, and a touchdown on the ground. And that's one thing. He's going to contribute more on the ground than some of those other guys who are priced higher than him, and he still has passing upside. He was 300 yards against Arkansas State, 300 against South Alabama, and 372 yards against Georgia Southern. He has 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. He routinely gets 10 plus carries. So I think, 50 on the ground or so is probably pretty reasonable. And the matchup's not too bad. Georgia State plays Western Kentucky. Through the air, they're a little bit limiting based on everybody else on the slate here, but allowing 40 rush attempts per game, tied for the most yards per attempt. It's 4.2 on the slate. They are stingy against through the air, but Brown's going to run, and I just like that. Like I mentioned before, Georgia State is favored, and also the 3rd highest points on the slate at 29. So, taking the quarterback who is the 5th out of 6 starters price, but the team is projected for the 3rd highest points, and he contributes on the ground. To me, it's really a no-brainer. Cornelius Brown will be on a ton of rosters, and then I'll have to choose probably between Willis and McCall at the top. Finally, we have Tyrell Pigrome for Western Kentucky. I don't think I want to touch this. He is very cheap at 6,100. But, man, it's just, I don't know, Western Kentucky, was kind of an offensive powerhouse, but has really been just gross this year. Pigrome has a 5.4 yards per attempt this year. That is really, really uninspiring. He's rushed 95 times for 316 yards, so contributes a touch on the ground, 3 rushing touchdowns in their 11 games. I don't even see the upside with a discount here. The only thing you could say is that Georgia State does have the worst defense on the schedule, allowing the most points on the slate, pass attempts, 2nd in yards per attempt, allowing the most plays on the slate, and allowing the highest yards per play on the slate. But I think I'd rather attack them on the ground. I just don't trust Pigrome to do anything at all. We're going to probably talk about a receiver or two, but have no interest in the quarterback just because the volume's not there. I mean, the raw stats aren't there. I don't know, haven't watched any Western Kentucky, I'll be honest with you, but looking at the numbers, that offense is just not explosive. It is ugly and short passing, 5 yards per attempt. I mean, that's atrocious. That's absolutely horrible. Even in the favorable matchup, I don't think I have interest. So I do think out of the 6 quarterbacks, it comes down to Cornelius Brown for me at 6,900, and then choosing one of the top 2 quarterbacks, as I stated before. On to running backs. We will talk about 8 out of the 6 teams. So a couple have 2 worth mentioning. CJ Marable is 9,000, and he is a stud. You can expect 20 to 25 touches. He's going to catch 3 to 4 passes. So, contributes in all phases. He's been a beast lately. 3 touchdowns absolutely in play for Marable. And You know that this is the marquee game. Coastal Carolina versus Liberty is the game of the slate in terms of just, the most NFL prospects, the best two teams. They were supposed to play before, but COVID reared its ugly head, and they had to, meet up in the bowl game instead of their regular season game. So, of course, I like Marable. The question is, can you fit him with whatever else you need to do? Can you fit him and one of the expensive quarterbacks? And that was difficult for me when I originally started plugging in players. I certainly think you can figure out a way to make it work, but, it's not really something I'm looking to do, I don't think. The next guy I really want to play, and that's Sincere McCormick for UTSA. He is an absolute beast. This guy, the last, 4 games, 37 carries, 16 against FAU, but they are a pretty good defense. 32 versus Southern Miss, 23 versus North Texas, by the way, 23 for 251 against North Texas. Horrific defense. He's caught 18 passes in, I think it's 11 games. So he'll throw in, 1 or 2 there. He's a great player. I don't know what happened. He blew up as a true freshman for UTSA. I think maybe one of the guys that just the recruiting services just flat out missed. He's not even that small. I mean, 5'9", over 200 pounds. So not humongous, but that's not, there's smaller guys going to bigger schools. I do not know how he just was completely off the radar, but ever since he stepped foot on the UTSA campus, he has been sensational, absolutely sensational. Dominated the running back room last year at UTSA, which as a freshman, I'm still impressed, but I'm sure what many of you would say, wow, it's UTSA. As a sophomore, he's just gotten even better. He's 1,300 rushing yards on 226 attempts, 6.0 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns in 11 games. He's a beast. There's no other way around it. Of course, this team, may struggle against some of your better teams. Brigham Young, he only had 11 for 42. Florida Atlantic's pretty good defense, 16 for 54. So certainly did struggle against some of the better defensive teams that UTSA played this year. And that's, I don't even say that to knock him, but a little worried about this particular slate. What are they going to do against a pretty decent Louisiana defense? The one thing in his favor is that Louisiana defense is excellent against the pass, allowing only 5.5 yards per attempt. But they are certainly, relatively speaking, much more susceptible to the run, allowing the most rushes on the slate, 43 per game, and tied for the most yards per carry, given up at 4.2. So, yes, Louisiana's a good defense, but if you're going to beat them on the ground, and UTSA wants to run this football. I think Sincere is about 25 carries in the bag. And, if the game script goes his way, 30 carries, absolutely in play for this guy. He's really, really, really good player. He's 8,000. I will absolutely take that discount, 1,000 off Marable, with I think the upside is comparable. Neither one of them get a super soft defense. Both of them should see a similar workload. And if anything, McCormick has better touchdown upside simply because Marable kind of does compete with McCall, especially in short yardage, where McCall can, do the read option and take the ball himself. So I really think McCormick's the play. If I had to choose between the two, I'm going to go McCormick. So, so that's that. If you're playing tournaments and stuff, you definitely do not want to completely fade Marable. But I think if you're being more selective and trying to squeeze out every bit of value of each choice, McCormick is pretty clearly the value there. We have Eli Mitchell for 6,400. He's Louisiana's. I think he's kind of their better running back, but they have a straight up split backfield between him and Trey Ragas. They're pretty much the exact same carries and receptions on the season. Comparable production with those touches, and really just a straight up 50-50 split. Touchdowns are a little bit in favor of Trey Ragas, but about the same across the board. I think if you got to choose one, go Ragas, because it's the exact same workload. And you get a $500 discount on Ragas. I kind of don't think I'm going to play either one. Although UTSA's defense is certainly not concerning, I think we can choose 3 running backs or 2 running backs on this slate where they're going to get all the work rather than having to guess a 50-50 split. And, I guess they both could get in the end zone. They run the ball a lot for Louisiana, but, if one was in the, a lot cheaper, maybe you go him, but Ragas isn't dirt cheap at 5,900. So I don't love it. At this time, I think we can do a little bit better. You've got Mac for Liberty. He's pretty clearly their top running back, although their top running back's really Willis. Touchdowns are heavily in favor of Willis, 10-4 between these two guys. And then there's a Peyton Pickett, who's kind of their third string running back, but he's got 6 touchdowns to Mac's 4. I haven't dug deep enough to know if there's injury issues there or whatever, but, Pickett looks almost as good from a per carry basis. He's got more touchdowns. They both have 3 receptions. I don't think there's a huge favorite here between Mac and Pickett. So it's a split backfield, and Willis gets most of the work. So I'm kind of not interested there, especially, at 6,200. I'm not against good Coastal Carolina defense. No, thank you. We've got Destin Coates for Georgia State. He is their primary running back. He's got 143 carries on the season. To the next closest is their quarterback with 88. And then there's a guy with 82. So he's almost doubled up the next running back. I like to see that. That's what you want to invest in, is a guy who, if they have a good day on the ground, it's almost all going to go to him. And Georgia State's matchup with Western Kentucky, not too concerning on the ground. I think when we talked about Brown was, if anything, they can be attacked on the ground. So I really like both the quarterback and the running back for Georgia State. That's Coates. He's only 5,500, and, you're getting a guy who is the lead back on this team without a whole lot of questions there. Of course, we've got Pickett at 5,200. We just talked about him for Liberty. And finally, we have Gage Walker for Western Kentucky. And he is only 5,000. This seems to be a major inefficiency with the pricing. I don't understand what's up with Gage Walker. There's no injury designation listed. He has been the Western Kentucky absolute workhorse now for 6 weeks in a row. He's got no less than 17 carries in 5 out of the last 6 weeks. He is chipping in roughly a reception or 2 per game during that span. He has only scored 1 touchdown, which might be the issue for him and for this offense in general. They're pretty gross on offense, I have to say. But I really like this guy, especially at cost. I mean, the quarterback has 3 touchdowns. Walker has 2. There's nobody else who's taking those touchdowns. They just don't score enough as an offense in general. But at 5,000, now that's a bargain to me. I really like it. I mean, if you're telling me a $5,000 guy is going to get 15 to 20 carries in a game that they are projected to score 24 points, only a 4-point dog. So, not a tremendous underdog. Game should be kind of close. And against the worst defense on the slate, the worst defense in Georgia State. So I really like that, getting this running back against a soft defense who has the backfield basically to himself for all these teams. So, to review again, I really like, Marable, not going to argue. I really like McCormick at value. I really like Coates at 55 and Walker at 5,000. Those are the running backs I really like. Otherwise, you're flipping a coin between these split backfields with Mitchell and Ragas, between Mac and his quarterback Willis, and also Pickett chips in there too. So I think the running backs you can be confident are going to get most of the work are Marable, McCormick, Coates, and Walker. Those are my guys. Finally, we have wide receivers. Number 1 on the list is Javian Hiley for Coastal Carolina. He's clearly the number 1 target for Grayson McCall, and he's a good player for them. 7,100. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fit him in, just because I'd rather pay up for the running backs and one of the big quarterbacks here than spend it on Hiley. In my best lineups I feel most comfortable about, he's just not going to make the cut. But again, we're looking for value. And why are we going to pay up for Hiley we can get a guy who dominates his wide receiver room in the same way in Sam Pinckney for Georgia State. This guy is covering about 32% of his team's offensive output through the air. With 44, 753, 6 line on the season, he leads his team in all categories, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He's just very clearly the top option for Georgia State. And so I really like pairing him with Cornelius Brown. He's a slight discount at 6,800. And, we're just looking for value here. We're looking at what guy can give you the same projected production with a little bit less. And I think a Pinckney-Brown combo is very good rather than paying up for highly. We've got Zachary Franklin for 5,800. He is, not even the alpha, in my opinion, for UTSA, but he's priced like it. They kind of split between him and Joshua Cephas for UTSA. I don't think I want anything to do with this passing game, though. They're 14-point dogs, which I guess would favor the passing game, but they just want to run. And Louisiana's defense is just really tough through the air. I don't really feel comfortable investing in that passing attack with Frank Harris, who's not a very good passer, and, these receivers that kind of split everything down the middle between Franklin and Cephas. You've got Shaw for Liberty. Yeah, I don't know what to expect. The Liberty receiving core is just kind of a mess. They all seem to kind of split. I guess in a tournament you could say, well, I'm hoping to pick the right one, but I don't like it. Willis runs a lot, and he runs near the end zone. And so I think if you really want to invest in Liberty offense, just do Willis and forget the rest. We've got McCoy for Georgia State. He's 5,300. I'd rather just pay up for Pinckney. I guess you could do both of them if you wanted to. They're pretty clearly the top two guys in that offense, but I'd really probably just rather pay up for Pinckney. He's so much more the obvious target for this team. And I think teams that don't have their best depth charts really do just lean on their guys. It's not like Alabama where if you shut down Devonta Smith, who, no one's been able to do that, but say you do, maybe you've got Mechie on the other side. You've got Billingsley. You've got studs everywhere else. But if you have a kind of one of these lower tier teams and they happen to have a feature guy or a stud who, is a stud for them, they can't just flip the script and use one of the rest of their guys because they're probably not great players. So I really like investing on these kind of worse teams, just going for their top player. And then there's some Western Kentucky receivers. You've got a trio of Tinsley, Simon's their tight end, Burt, Dakota Thomas sneaks in there. These are all guys that catch passes for Western Kentucky, and they're all priced very inexpensive. Tinsley's pretty clearly their number one option. He's 4,700. Xavier Lane, one of their other pretty good receivers, second on the team, is been battling an injury. He may be out for this game. Does that open anything up? I don't really know. This offense is very hard to want to do much with, other than I do like the value of their running back. Otherwise, I don't really think I want to pick any of these guys. Dakota Thomas caught 5 passes in his last game. Those were his first 5 receptions on the season. Maybe it's because Lane was out. He is a true freshman, and so he's coming on 5 for 78 in his first season action. That might be a guy worth just kind of hoping that he's ascending the depth chart, but we have no idea. I don't have any pipeline to the Western Kentucky athletic department. If you're going to do it, I guess you can go with Dakota Thomas or something and just hope. But otherwise, probably staying away. Isaiah Likely for Coastal Carolina. This is a guy who, it's a real nice number, 4,600. And he is their third leading receiver. This is a guy I kind of like, especially in this game. He is their tight end for Coastal Carolina. He is their third leading receiver in receptions, but actually their second leading receiver in yardage. He is averaging 20 yards per reception at tight end. He's got 4 touchdowns. I think it's just kind of a price and investing in one of the better offenses on the slate. He's 4,600. And I think you're going to focus probably on Hiley, and I think Likely could be the beneficiary of there. So I think that's a nice pivot. 4,600, you're going to get some savings and still get a piece of that Coastal Carolina offense. If you invest in McCall, pair him with Likely, I kind of like that, and just opens up a little more money for you to do other things. Then we just have a lot of these receivers that these are bad passing offenses. I don't feel very good about it. We have some interesting guys for Louisiana facing the worst defense on the slate in Georgia State. And so I think that's where we're going to look for some value. They have three guys that kind of all have come in, but between 300 and 350 receiving yards on the season. And they're all pretty similar. I think I would take the guy. So Jalen Williams has 19 receptions for 345 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is the most yards per reception and tied for the most receiving touchdowns on the team. Peter LeBlanc has 23 for 334 and only 1. And Kyron Lacey, who's a freshman, so that's always interesting. I mean, when a freshman comes in, leads a team, not only for this, just to say he must be very good for them. Even in Devi, a true freshman coming in and leading any team, we should pay attention to that. So Kyron Lacey has done that for Louisiana this year, 24 for 326 and 3. And I think that investing in one of these guys is probably a pretty good idea. Like I said, worst pass defense on the slate, highest team total, favored by a lot. And so this is where I'm going to want to go. So we've got Williams at 4,200. We have Lacey at 4,000 and LeBlanc at 3,600. I think if you need the savings, you could definitely try out LeBlanc, but I'm kind of interested in Lacey and Jalen Williams here. Lacey, all these guys seem to be averaging, 3 receptions a game about. Lacey has one where he caught 5 for 48 and a touchdown. And then Jalen Williams, again, his highest day is 4 for 89 and a touchdown against Coastal Carolina earlier this year. These guys are all going to, if you're lucky if you get 3 receptions, I suppose. And that's why they're priced so cheap. But I like it. I like one. I like one of them get a handle on the Louisiana passing game against this bad defense. And they just kind of fit. So, yeah, Lacey at 4 or Williams at 4,200. I kind of like that. And then if you have to go real low, LeBlanc for 3,600. And I'll be honest, there's just not a lot of great passing teams on this slate. So I don't love it. I just don't love investing in receivers. In these 3 games, there's really not a lot going on. I think Pickney highly if you want to do the 7,100. And then, take your shot on one of the Louisiana guys. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. And that really does it. That's about it. We've only got 3 games. There's not a lot of receiving upside. So there's not a lot of receivers that I think are worth talking about. Of course, like we want to do, we like to do the ultimate stars and scrubs. Let's try to cram the most expensive guys in there and see what we can come out with. So, we're going to take the easily top 4 players. That's Willis and McCall for Liberty Coastal Carolina. That's Marable and McCormick for Coastal Carolina and UTSA. That leaves us with $3,750 per remaining player, which that means we can do this. It's going to be ugly, but we can do it. So I would like to save $5,000 for Gage Walker. I don't know if we can get there. Let's do 3,600 for LeBlanc. That's definitely someone I had already highlighted, and I think that's not a bad idea. That gets us to 3,800. We're going to have to go extremely low on some of these guys, and I think the Western Kentucky team might have some $3,000 guys we can get in on. Yeah, so we've got Craig Burt, who is only 3,100. He is actually their 4th leading receiver on the season with 22 receptions, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He looks like a true freshman. He does not have an injury designation, so that's not why he's so low. And then let's see what he's done lately. 1 catch the last 2 games, but had a little streak there, 5, 5, and 3. We have to do this and hope for the best. You're not going to have a balanced roster. So let's go with Craig Burt. As a freshman, maybe they want to get him in the game, see what he can offer them, which leaves us at 4,150. We are not – well, you know what? We are going to be able to get to Gage Walker at 5,000 because we have 3,300 to spend on our last wide receiver. So I did go ahead and put Gage Walker in there. Errol Rogers for Louisiana. You know, we're scraping the absolute bottom of the barrel, but that's what we have to do here if we want to cram in those studs. He has led the team in receptions a couple of times, even with their other guys on the field. He had 4 for 32 against Texas State. It's 4 for 32. That's 7.2 points. We are not impressed with that. I'm just saying there are games where he has been, the featured receiver. He does have 3 for 39 and a touchdown against Georgia Southern. He had 2 for 27 against Louisiana Monroe. He's kind of been used a little bit, and it seems to me the games that he's registered some stats, it's about the same as the other guys. I mean, it's, 3, 2, 3, 4 catches. That's kind of this entire team seems to do that. Again, they want to run the ball a whole lot more than anything else. So at 3,300, he fits. I think, he has 2 touchdowns on the season and the, leading receiver has 3. So, it's a coin flip, but at that cost on a team that's going to score a lot of points in this game, I think, you could do worse. It's just fitting it in because when you do something like this, you're saying, I have to have the studs, and we are absolutely hoping for a lucky touchdown or, something to happen. You're not thinking Rodgers here is going to go crazy, but you're hoping the studs go crazy and then these guys can chip in. I mean, 7-8 points is really what you're hoping for. Somehow if they get in the end zone, jackpot, but that's how you win a tournament. And so I think this is interesting. At least it gives you a blueprint, and then you can switch out. Like say, oh, I don't want Willis. I'll drop down to one of these other quarterbacks. But it looks like you can go Marable, McCormick, and Walker, which I like those. You could do something different, fit Coates in there if you liked him, and play around with it. And so you can do it. It can be done. You have to go very, very cheap at receiver. But on this slate, I don't think that's a horrible idea. And that's the ultimate stars and scrubs right there. So take that for what you will. That is the 3-game slate on Saturday. We do have a lot of other bowl games coming up after that, but probably can't get to a video for each and every day, but follow, Twitter. It's at AL_FF_RED. It's also at WWT CFB, which is kind of the Twitter account for this particular, YouTube show and kind of the thing that we're growing with this entity. And I will tweet stuff out from that account for, last minute injury stuff or changes in my thinking. Oh, hey, we're coming off Errol Rogers. We're going to go to this other guy for Lafayette or Louisiana, however it may be. So certainly follow those for, information between the shows. But that is WWTS for this week. Enjoy your Saturday. Enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, the whole 9 yards. And I hope you're having a great time. And I know we are here at WWTS, and let's keep it going.